From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. People around the world are commemorating International Workers' Day with marches and rallies. The day originated in the U.S. in the 19th century when the labor union movement rose up against unjust working conditions and demanded better pay, reasonable hours, and paid leave. Let's go to Cuba now, where thousands have been gathering since 5 in the morning to take part in the traditional May Day March in Havana and Santiago de Cuba. Children, students, and workers are commemorating the achievements for workers in one of the most important events of the Cuban Revolution. President Miguel Díaz-Canel and Raúl Castro are also attending the celebration. Celebrations are set to continue throughout the day. Marchers are waving flags and bearing placards with revolutionary slogans. Our correspondent in Brazil, Brian Muir, has more on the celebration of the May Day in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
I'm standing on the edge of a very noisy Anhangabaú Square in downtown Sao Paulo, where for the first time ever, the two largest labor union confederations in Brazil, the Força Sindical and ACUT, have decided to hold their annual workers' party together in the same location. So there's dozens of musical acts that have been playing since 10 this morning, and there's a crowd of around 50,000 people out on the square. And they took advantage of this moment today to announce the date of the national general strike against far-right President Jair Bolsonaro's neoliberal retirement reforms. They've set the date for June 14th. So on that date, millions of people will refuse to go to work. They'll shut down roads, public transportation will stop running, all in an attempt to defeat these retirement reforms, which if passed, would turn control of management of the pension funds into the private sector, mimicking what dictator Augusto Pinochet did in Chile in 1980, which resulted in a lot of pain and suffering for the Chilean elderly population, including record suicide rates among the elderly. So the unions are united, and the feeling in the air is optimism that just as when Michel Temer took over the presidency after the 2016 parliamentary coup, they will be able to defeat this neoliberal initiative.
We thank Brian for that report. The Resistant Heartbeat Drummers Foundation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines stand in solidarity with the government and the people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Their members condemn the aggressions of the United States against the Venezuelans, which include a financial blockade and military threats.
I'd like to express profound solidarity with the government and people of Venezuela. We are asking the Western powers, the so-called Western powers, to keep their hands off of Venezuela. Let the people of Venezuela determine their own destiny. You cannot impose on people your kind of democracy or your prescribed democracy. We have seen so many instances of this around the world. We have so many states that are in disarray, principally because the United States and others have gone in and tried to impose their style and brand of democracy on the people. Hands off of Venezuela. The attempted coup by the reactionaries in Venezuela must be condemned by all, and the Venezuelan people must be left to determine their destiny. Hands off of Venezuela. Let the legitimate government of the people run the country and take Venezuela to the next level.
I would like to, on behalf of the St. Vincent Cuba Friendship Society and the Vincentian people, to extend our solidarity with the people of Venezuela, and particularly today with the working people, in terms of the aggression of the United States and those who are encouraged by it internally. We stand firmly with the people of Venezuela in their path for development, and in resisting those attacks. We think it is of fundamental importance that the rest of the Caribbean provide support and solidarity to Venezuela at this time.
And our correspondent Ernesto Avalos reports from the May Day demonstrations in El Salvador.
Me encuentro en la Plaza del Divino Salvador del Mundo.
We're in the square Divino Salvador del Mundo, in the Salvadoran capital, where thousands of people have come to commemorate Workers' Day. They will march along the main avenues in San Salvador. Labour unions and social movements are also joining the march from other parts of the city. People are demanding a rise in the minimum wage, a public pension system, and other rights related with the self-determination of people, which are related to what the people in Caracas lived through on Tuesday. Those are the demands of the workers on this day from the Salvadoran capital.
We thank Ernesto for that report. The Bolivian President Evo Morales has sent a message to the workers in the country congratulating them for their work.
In this historic day for the workers in Bolivia, I congratulate you. I perfectly remember when in previous years, when the neoliberal governments were in power, people lived this day in a hunger strike or in a national strike in the streets. The campesino movement blocked roads. There were no commemorations. Now I thank very much for participating in this march to pay tribute to the workers.
Venezuelans also took to the streets to celebrate Labor Day and the achievements of the Bolivarian Revolution, just a day after the government quelled an attempted coup d'etat. Chavistas and supporters of President Nicolás Maduro came out in numbers to support workers' rights and the struggle against imperialism. Workers were in high spirits.
It's one of the most important days we have. It's our process and we need all the workers, the whole Venezuelan people. With the same commitment, we are Venezuela and we are indestructible. Our commander, Hugo Chavez, gave us an opportunity so that on May 1st, there would be a law for the workers to protect the workers. I was one of the people who benefited, so I thank God for Chavez and our worker, President Nicolás Maduro, who will continue in the revolution for it's indestructible. Love with love is paid, and Venezuela loves you, Nicolás. Keep fighting. You will never be without support.
On the eve of International Workers' Day, hundreds of thousands of workers took to the streets of Argentina to condemn the government's economic policies.
Despite the threats by police, Tuesday's national strike played out on Argentina's streets to protest against President Mauricio Macri's current economic measures, which have led to widespread hunger and unemployment in the most vulnerable sectors of society.
Está paralizado el país.
The country is crippled. People are already tired and desperate. We are hungry and we don't have jobs. Salaries are not enough to pay rent. Prices have increased by 3,000 and even 4,000%. They are destroying the working class, so they stop fighting for their rights.
The national strike and mobilization caused a great impact. Workers' unions rejected the government's attempts at undermining their demands. No flights, metro or banks operated on Tuesday, and even garbage collection was cancelled. Teachers and state workers joined the cause, and a great number of public drivers supported the protest and called their own strike for May the 1st.
This has been a very successful strike, and it's all because of the daily situation we live in. We all have someone that has lost a job, that can't bring any food back home. That is why this is the only way, the unity on the streets.
From the historic Plaza de Mayo, protesters announced that their fight will continue, and not a step will be taken back in the fight against inflation, which doesn't allow most citizens to be able to afford a whole month's expenses.
Argentina is a very wealthy country. Its problem is that all our wealth goes into very few hands. We have to go and find that wealth, to redistribute it fairly. That's why this strike has a deep political meaning, and that's why we demand a major change in the economy.
Just one day ahead of International Workers' Day, over 200,000 people filled the streets of Argentina to be part of an act where workers' unions demanded a change to the economic course of the country.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. South African opposition leader Julius Malema has urged the country's workers to take advantage of the coming elections to elect a government that will take the welfare of workers seriously. Addressing thousands of supporters who attended his party's Workers' Day rally in Johannesburg, Malema accused the government of allowing international investors to exploit the country's workers. He promised to hold investors accountable if his party wins the May 8th elections.
Must wake up, they must stop sleeping. Any investor who's going to invest in Africa, in South Africa, must do that through our terms. If they don't want to give our workers shares, then they can remain with their money.
Palestinians held a rally in Gaza during Workers' Day celebrations, demanding jobs and better living conditions. They demanded the implementation of workers' rights and that employment opportunities be offered to the marginalized class of the Palestinian society. In the context of the Israeli blockade on Palestine, unemployment increased to 31% in 2018, up from 28% in 2017.
We ask those responsible for a decent life. No worker in Gaza or Darfur is living in good conditions. Workers are exhausted. We want to live a dignified life. Enough with the lying and the humiliation.
Workers have been taken to the streets in Ecuador for May Day to demonstrate against government austerity measures. Our correspondent Denise Herrera was at the march earlier and sent us this report.
Ecuadorian workers are marching today in the framework of International Workers' Day. They are marching against the latest measures imposed by President Lenin Moreno. They are against the privatization of public companies. They are against the recent massive layoffs. They are against also to the agreement signed with the IMF. Also, it's the first time that different organizations of women are marching today in Ecuador in defense of their rights.
Report. Spanish unions used their May Day march to pressure the PSOE party to move to the left. The PSOE party are likely to form the next government, having won last Sunday's elections. Demonstrators carried Republic flags and demanded that the Socialist Party repeal conservative labor laws. The current Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has adopted a centrist position, but PSOE party activists want him to pact with the left-wing Podemos party in the parliament.
I have hope that there will be a new leftist government, that the socialists do not err when the time comes to make pacts, and that it looks to the left when it's time to form a government, so that theirs is a real government of the left in Spain.
Our correspondent in Madrid, Adriana Cardoso, has more.
Workers' Day demonstrations have started in Spain. There are more than 70 protests taking place across the country, organized by the labor unions under the slogans, "We will keep fighting." People demand a decrease in the labor gap between men and women and the end of the precarity in the labor market. Here in Madrid, the protest was divided into two main blocks. First, labor unions were leading the march in an institutional block with participants of Workers' General Union and the Workers' Commissions, as well as former ministers. The other block was formed by young people and pensioners. During the march, we could hear people chanting slogans such as, "We produce, we decide, there are no adjustments. It is a class struggle." The working situation in Spain includes a lot of temporary jobs, and people came to protest against this too.
We thank Adriana for that report. The March of Dignity in Guatemala has begun in the west of the country. In 8 days, it will arrive to Guatemala City. The march is against the criminalization of indigenous and campesino leaders. They are also demonstrating against corruption and impunity and denouncing an electoral system that does not represent the people. Venezuelan loyal soldiers on Tuesday defended the Carlota military air base as the opposition failed to take control of the base. Our correspondent Madeline Garcia has this report.
Rumors had spread on social media that military deserters had taken control of the Carlota military base, but that was not true.
I want to deny the comments that have been circulating that the Carlota airbase has been taken. We are all here at the airbase, officials, troops, staff, who are loyal to our commander Chavez, loyal to our commander-in-chief Nicolas Maduro. And I also want to say that a good part of those soldiers got in touch with me, and they went back to the base because they were deceived.
They were deceived and did everything they could to present themselves to their commander.
At 3 a.m. they sent us to look for rifles to the armory, and they told us that we are going to take over the Tocoran prison, because they have entered 1,000 rifles and they are going to take the prisoners out, so they can go and fight against the people. That meeting was going to be with 7 and FtS commands. They told us that we are going to leave from Altamira to the Tocoran prison, and we didn't. When we got there, what they did was, they gave us a bracelet, they blocked the road and told us that this was a coup d'etat.
They joined the rest of the troops to defend the military base. Suddenly shots were heard from the direction of the Altamira distributor next to the Carlota base. That was the moment the military deserters and some civilians started firing their weapons. One of the loyal soldiers was ambushed in the middle of the operation to control the situation and managed to run from the coup perpetrators.
I don't know what to think. Turncoat soldiers. It's not possible that your own soldiers wearing the same uniform aim a rifle at you and say to you that they are going to kill you, knowing that we are one and the same.
The military base La Carlota was besieged. It was one of the targets of the deserters. The opponents managed to take down a part of the fence. Despite the deserters bringing down the perimeter height, the military didn't shoot at them. They opted for dialogue. The opponents managed to set on fire a part of the Air Force base. The fire destroyed motorcycles, vehicles, and an office. The military helicopters were sheltered. At the end of the day, the deserters couldn't take over the Carlota military base, and the soldiers remained loyal.
Now, staying in Venezuela, we are now joined on the line from Caracas by journalist Mike Fox, who is at the Chavista May Day March. Thank you for joining us, Mike. What's the mood like there on the Chavista March just a day after the failed coup attempt?
Oh, well, obviously there's a lot of excitement. People have been marching all day. You know, they started meeting at 10 a.m. in different places around the country. I was marching with a march that came in from El Valle, which is kilometers away from where we are now, and they marched the whole way. And literally, you know, it's almost 5 o'clock now. So these people have been out in the sun all day long, but they're extremely excited. They're extremely supportive. Today's Workers' Day, obviously, that's absolutely important. And you know, these people are out, and they say, you know, they defeated a potential military threat yesterday by Juan Guaido, and they're here to support their president.
About the opposition march, how are they reacting to the failure of yesterday's coup attempt?
You know, a lot of the supporters there. You know, Guaido came out. He spoke today. He called for a series of intermittent strikes leading up to a larger national strike. That's kind of the next chess move in his and the U.S. government's plan. A lot of the supporters there, you know, they didn't use the word disappointed. They said they were excited because, you know, it was another step and moving forward. But you could tell that in terms of numbers, there were definitely thousands of people there. There were a lot of people there. But it's just for a couple blocks. It wasn't that large. And you got a sense that, you know, yesterday out in the crowd, yesterday I was there at, you know, 8 a.m. just outside of Carlota, and people there were saying, listen, it's now or never. It's going to finish now. You know, Maduro is going to be ousted today. And it obviously did not happen. It was obviously a very clear kind of media manipulation of the moment in order to make it seem as though Guaido had taken the military base, which he had not. And it took a very long time for that to become clear in the international media. So I think the supporters are kind of questioning what's next. And, you know, the whole thing that went down yesterday, this kind of a disastrous result for the Juan Guaido camp. If you think about it, Leopoldo Lopez is now, he went into he asked for asylum in Chile, and then they went over to the Spanish embassy, which he's going to be getting asylum in Spain. And the question for them is obviously where do they go next? Because the major and most important key point here is that the Venezuelan military stayed on the side of President Maduro. And that's what they've always said they would, and that's where they were yesterday.
Mike, we thank you so much for your update. We'll get back to you hopefully throughout the day. More news now. U.S. Congress member Ilhan Omar criticized the Trump administration's policies towards Venezuela during an interview on Democracy Now!
A lot of the policies that we have put in place has kind of helped lead the devastation in Venezuela, and we've sort of set the stage for where we are arriving today. This particular bullying and the use of sanctions to eventually intervene and make regime change really does not help the people of countries like Venezuela, and it certainly does not help, and it's not in the interest of the United States.
Congressmember Omar also talked about her questioning of Elliot Abrams and Trump's special envoy for Venezuela.
People like Elliot Abrams, neocons and warmongers, for so long have pushed for policies that are now, we can see not only in Central America, but many parts of the world, the kind of devastations that they've had for decades. I could not pass up the opportunity to not only remind the American people that this was someone who was convicted of lying to Congress, but also someone who had a heavy hand in some of the most devastating policies that we imposed on Central America, and that there is a direct correlation between the kind of mass migration that we're noticing right now from Central America and South America to this country.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Thousands of workers gathered in separate rallies in Jakarta to mark a Labor Day. A large group of Indonesians staged a peaceful protest on the streets and marched towards the presidential palace, demanding wage increases to counter rising inflation in Southeast Asia's largest economy. Thousands also gathered at an indoor stadium in Indonesia's capital to celebrate the day and were addressed by presidential candidate Prabowo Subianto, who said that workers formed the backbone of the economy. And thousands of Philippine protesters also marched in May Day protests. They denounced President Rodrigo Duterte's economic policies, which have left just under a quarter of the nation of 106 million in poverty. Rows of marchers flew red banners and chanted near the presidential palace in Manila, where they set fire to an effigy adorned with Chinese and U.S. flags, the two competing powers in the Philippines.
We continue to call on the government to provide a reasonable and living wage, not only for us teachers, but for all the workers in the country, so we could survive the surging inflation.
Brazil has been paying its respects to one of its greatest ever samba stars. Beth Carvalho died on Tuesday at the age of 71. Celebrities and fans joined her family to sing their farewell at a wake hosted by Botafogo Football Club in Rio de Janeiro. Beth Carvalho was one of the founders of Samba Pagode. During Brazil's military dictatorship, her lyrics often celebrated the resilience of the poor. Last year, she sang for the release of Lula da Silva from prison. We'll leave you with that, her final recorded song.
Brasil andar pra frente, vamos caminhar. Seja o elo da corrente, vamos caminhar. O povo quer, o povo decide, o povo diz. Nós queremos Lula andando livre do país. Vai pro Brasil andar pra frente, vamos caminhar. Seja o elo da corrente, vamos caminhar. O povo quer, o povo decide, o povo diz. Nós queremos Lula andando livre do país. Ele une o país, semeando amor. Esse povo tão sofrido, trabalhador. A sua meta é ver o povo com igualdade, alimento, moradia, vaga na universidade. No Brasil andar pra frente, vamos caminhar. Esse é o elo da corrente, vamos caminhar.